You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
In this chilling, true-style tale, a quiet foster home is turned upside down when a young orphan girl arrives with an unusual habit. She draws intricate doors on her bedroom walls and whispers to them at night. At first, her new parents think it's just imagination, until the house itself begins to change in terrifying ways. What follows is a haunting descent into a mystery far darker than anyone could have imagined. One where the lines between protection and danger are drawn in crayon, and once crossed, can never be undone. If you love slow-burn supernatural horror with disturbing twists, immersive storytelling, and the kind of fear that lingers long after the lights go out, subscribe to Soul Studios now, because some stories aren't made up, they're sealed away. A floorboard creaked in the dead of night, jarring John awake. In the silent hallway, he could hear it, a faint whispering echoing from behind the walls. His heart pounded as he realized it was his foster daughter, Lucy, and she sounded terrified. Then came the scream. It was a shrill, unnatural cry that sliced through the darkness and sent John sprinting towards Lucy's room. Each footfall echoed too loudly, as if the house were empty and vast. He raced down the corridor, but something was wrong. The hallway kept stretching on and on, far longer than it ever had before. Lucy's door, usually just a few steps away, seemed 100 feet distant now. On the walls around him, shadows danced in the moonlight, twisting into shapes that shouldn't exist. John's breath caught in his throat. He could still hear Lucy crying out for help somewhere ahead, but the more he ran, the further away her voice seemed. Impossible. He glanced over his shoulder and saw the darkness at the other end of the hall closing in, as if the house itself was swallowing him. Desperate, he roared his foster daughter's name. Lucy. The lights flickered, once, twice, and then died, plunging everything into black. John skidded to a halt, chest heaving in the suffocating silence. For a moment, the only sound was his own panicked breathing. Then he heard a soft scraping noise, like fingernails dragging across wood, inching closer from somewhere within the walls. In that claustrophobic dark, John realized he was no longer alone in the hallway. Something else was there with him. 2 weeks earlier, none of this horror had yet unfolded. In early 2019, a 7-year-old girl named Lucy was placed with new foster parents, John and Maria Owens, in a quiet town on the outskirts of Coldwater, Maine. Lucy had lost her parents in a tragic accident and arrived at the Owens home with nothing but a small suitcase and a notebook filled with her crayon drawings. She was a delicate, soft-spoken child, with large, curious eyes and an innocent smile. At first, John and Maria were relieved. Lucy seemed polite, obedient, and painfully shy. They assured her she was safe and tried to make her feel at home. Maria even decorated a lovely bedroom for Lucy, painting it a warm yellow and hanging cheerful butterfly curtains. The little girl thanked them in her small voice and clutched her sketchbook tightly to her chest as if it were a shield. From the very first night, Lucy's behavior was a bit odd, though the Owens chalked it up to trauma. They would hear her pacing in her bedroom past midnight, or catch her whispering when she thought no one was listening. Maria once gently pressed an ear to Lucy's closed door after midnight, worried the girl might be upset or talking to herself. What she heard was Lucy murmuring softly, almost cooing, as though comforting an unseen friend. The words were too faint to make out, a rhythmic hush of syllables in the darkness. When Maria peeked in, she found Lucy sitting cross-legged on the floor, facing the wall. The child, startled, turned around with wide eyes and simply said, "It's okay, I wasn't scared," before crawling back into bed without another word. Maria left puzzled, but she decided not to push Lucy. After all, children often invent imaginary friends to cope with loneliness and loss. If a pretend friend could give Lucy comfort, so be it. John, however, remained slightly uneasy. The house itself felt different since Lucy's arrival. He couldn't put his finger on it. Maybe it was just the stress of becoming foster parents overnight. But sometimes the air felt heavier, the silence in the rooms more pronounced. Once or twice he could swear he felt a chill draft in the hallway, even when all the windows were closed. Late one evening, as he double-checked the locks on the front door, he heard what sounded like a faint giggle behind him. He spun around, expecting to see Lucy out of bed, but the living room was empty, lit only by the flicker of the TV. Maria had left on mute. John shrugged it off. It had to have been the TV or his mind playing tricks. After all, fostering a traumatized child put one on edge. He told himself it was just nerves. Over the next few days, Lucy slowly came out of her shell. She wasn't talkative, but she was sweet-natured, helping Maria dry the dishes or quietly curling up on the couch with John to watch old cartoons. The Owens began to feel hopeful that their little family might just work out. One afternoon, Maria decided to surprise Lucy with a new set of coloured chalks and crayons, noticing how much the girl loved to draw. Lucy's face lit up with genuine delight, the first real smile they had seen from her. Immediately she scampered off to her room with the art supplies. Maria and John exchanged pleased glances. Maybe Lucy had found a healthy outlet for her emotions. However, that night they discovered what Lucy had been so eagerly working on. When John came to say goodnight, he stopped in the doorway, stunned. Covering one of the yellow bedroom walls was an intricately detailed drawing of a door. It was nearly life-size, about 7 feet tall, and drawn in thick black crayon with astonishing precision for a child so young. The door had ornate patterns along its frame, whorls and loops that intertwined like vines. In the center was a knob drawn in dark red, almost the color of rust or dried blood. It didn't resemble a child's sketch at all. It looked like a door from some ancient, foreboding mansion, meticulously reproduced on the wall. Lucy stood beside it, a black crayon in her hand, her gaze fixed on the door as if expecting it to open. John felt a prickle of unease. "Lucy, honey, what is this?" he asked as gently as possible. Maria, hearing the conversation, joined him in the doorway and gasped softly at the sight. Lucy turned to them with an apologetic look, as if caught doing something wrong. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I needed to draw it. It has to be there." Her voice was trembling. Maria approached and knelt beside her. "It's okay, sweetheart. You like drawing doors, huh?" Lucy nodded, but didn't elaborate. She reached out and almost caressed the drawn door's frame with her fingertips. "It's a pretty door," Maria offered, trying to stay supportive despite the chill creeping up her spine. Up close, the drawing's details were even more unsettling. Tiny symbols were etched into the drawn wood grain, shapes that looked a bit like eyes and twisting faces, as if the wood itself was alive. Maria forced a smile. "Maybe keep the drawings on paper next time, okay? We don't usually draw on walls." Lucy bit her lip and for a moment looked like she might cry. She opened her mouth as if she desperately wanted to explain something, but no explanation came. Instead, she simply said in a tiny voice, "I'm sorry. Good night." Then Lucy climbed into bed and turned her face away, clearly upset. Back in the living room, John and Maria discussed the strange mural. John was concerned. Was this normal behavior for a grieving child? The level of detail disturbed him, and he admitted the drawing made him feel uneasy just looking at it. Maria defended Lucy. "She's been through a lot, John. Maybe this is how she's processing. Kids express things in drawings they can't in words." They agreed to let it be for now. Painting over Lucy's artwork immediately might feel punishing, and the last thing they wanted was to discourage her or break her trust. John nodded, but as he headed for bed, he couldn't shake the image of that drawn door from his mind. In the dim light, it had almost looked three-dimensional, like a real door waiting to be opened. That night he dreamt of footsteps behind that door, slow and heavy, and of Lucy's soft whispers creeping through the keyhole. Over the next week, Lucy added more door drawings to her room. By Friday, nearly every wall bore a door, one on each wall of her bedroom, and even a small square hatch drawn on the ceiling above her bed, like an attic door. Each was unique in style. One looked like a heavy cellar door with iron hinges, another like a slender closet door with slats, and each was crafted with the same eerie, careful detail. The child's artistry was remarkable and unsettling in equal measure. The Owens grew increasingly concerned. When Maria gently asked why she loved drawing doors so much, Lucy only shrugged and replied, "They like me too," before quickly changing the subject. Who they were, Maria couldn't guess. Perhaps Lucy's imaginary friends? The couple decided that maybe it was time to set some boundaries. A few doodles were understandable, but the sheer number of door drawings was becoming, in John's words, obsessive. That weekend, while Lucy was outside playing under Maria's watch, John resolved to clean up the bedroom walls. Lucy had drawn 5 doors in total, and the largest one, the first door she drew, seemed to bother John the most. It was the one she often sat in front of, whispering to at night. With a reluctant sigh, John gathered paint, a roller and primer from the garage. He told himself this was for Lucy's own good. The drawings were fueling what he assumed were unhealthy fantasies. As he opened the can of pale yellow paint Maria had saved, John felt a strange pang of guilt, almost like he was betraying the little girl's trust. Shaking it off, he started painting over the biggest door drawing, stroking the roller until the bold black lines and eerie red knob were hidden under fresh paint. It took 3 coats to fully cover the intricate design. The crayon marks kept bleeding through faintly, as if resisting. Eventually, the wall was solid yellow again. John stepped back, strangely uneasy. The room was quieter than ever, the air heavy and still. It felt wrong, but he brushed the feeling aside. "It's just a drawing," he muttered to himself. "We're helping her." That evening, when Lucy discovered what had been done, the reaction was far more intense than John or Maria expected. Lucy burst into tears the moment she saw the blank yellow wall where her first door drawing had been. She slapped her small palms against the wall, desperately as if trying to find the door again. "No, no, no, why did you do that?" she sobbed. John immediately knelt down, trying to comfort her. "Lucy, I'm sorry. We had to clean the wall, sweetie. You can't just draw on everything." But Lucy was inconsolable. She wasn't angry. She was terrified. It was supposed to stay closed, she cried. Her little body trembled uncontrollably. Maria, alarmed at this level of panic, scooped Lucy into her arms. "Shh, it's okay, baby," she whispered, stroking Lucy's hair. "Nothing's going to hurt you. It was just a drawing." Lucy buried her face in Maria's shoulder, still shaking. Between ragged breaths, they could just make out her muffled words. "You let it out. Now it's out." John and Maria exchanged worried glances over Lucy's head. "Let it out?" John wanted to ask what she meant, but Lucy was in no state to answer. That night, they let her sleep in their bed, thinking a night of closeness might help her feel safe after the distress. Eventually, Lucy cried herself to an exhausted sleep between them. Maria gently wiped the tears from the girl's cheeks and promised that they'd repaint her wall with as many butterflies and rainbows as she wanted tomorrow. John nodded in agreement, but deep down an uneasy dread gnawed at him. As he stared up at the ceiling in the darkness, Lucy's chilling words replayed in his mind on loop. "Now it's out." He told himself again that she meant an imaginary friend, perhaps now let out of a pretend door. Surely, this was just a child's nightmare flaring up. With time and love it would pass, wouldn't it? The next day passed without incident, and the Owens hoped the worst was over. Lucy was quiet and bleary-eyed at breakfast, but she managed a faint smile when Maria made her favourite blueberry pancakes. By afternoon, Lucy even ventured a short, hesitant apology to John for getting mad about the wall. This broke John's heart. He assured her she did nothing wrong, and that they just wanted her to be happy. Lucy didn't mention the drawings at all. She seemed to avoid looking at the freshly painted section of her bedroom, but otherwise she was her polite, shy self. John thought maybe they had turned a corner. He decided not to paint over the remaining 4 door drawings just yet to avoid upsetting her further. That night, however, strange things began to happen. It started subtly. At 11 p.m, Maria went to the kitchen for a glass of water and paused in confusion. The hallway from their bedroom to the kitchen felt longer than she remembered. What was usually a 10-step walk now took 20. In the dark, she assumed her sleepy mind was playing tricks, so she counted her steps back, 10 just as it should be. Shaking her head, she returned to bed. Next, around midnight, the family cat, an old tabby named Pumpkin, began pawing and yowling at the wall in the living room, waking John, who had dozed off on the couch. He shooed Pumpkin away, but the cat kept returning to the same spot on the wall, sniffing and hissing at it. It was the wall adjacent to Lucy's room. John, irritably chalking it up to mice in the walls, thumped the wall to scare off any pests. At the sound from Lucy's room came a soft thud, as if something hit the wall from the other side. John's stomach flipped. Was Lucy awake? He listened, but heard nothing further. Telling himself a half-hearted joke about ghost mice, he went to check on Lucy. She was in bed, apparently fast asleep, clutching her teddy bear tightly. The remaining door drawings loomed over her in the silver glow of moonlight. They seemed to bend and warp on the walls, but John assumed it was just the shadows and his tired eyes. He closed her door gently and went back to the living room, not noticing that Pumpkin had fled and was now hiding under the recliner, wide-eyed and quivering. At 2:13 a.m., the quiet was shattered. All the lights in the house abruptly flickered on, every lamp and overhead sparking to life at once. John and Maria jolted awake in their bed. A second later, a series of deafening bangs resounded through the house, doors slamming one after another. It was as if every door in the house was being violently thrown open and shut repeatedly. The Owens scrambled up, disoriented. John thought an intruder must be in the house. He grabbed the baseball bat he kept under the bed and motioned Maria to stay with Lucy. Heart racing, he crept into the hallway. The banging had stopped, but now the house was eerily silent again, lights still blazing. He checked the front door, locked. The back door, locked. As he moved through the ground floor, something caught his eye. The coat closet that normally sat under the stairs was gone. John blinked in confusion. There was no closet door anymore, only a smooth wall where the door should have been. He ran his hands over the wall. The outline of the door was faintly visible, as if it had been sealed over with drywall long ago. "What in the world?" he muttered. He knew that closet had existed yesterday. Their jackets were inside it. Now it was as if the house itself had erased it. Upstairs, Maria tried to keep calm for Lucy's sake. She held the girl's hand and started to dial 911 on her phone, but the screen only flickered, showing no signal, which made no sense in the middle of town. Lucy stood beside her, unnaturally still. The child's eyes were fixed on her bedroom door across the hall. "He's out," Lucy whispered, almost inaudibly. Maria barely caught it. "Sweetie, what did you say?" Before Lucy could answer, John's shout echoed from downstairs. "Maria, something's wrong with the house. Stay with Lucy." No kidding, Maria thought, her pulse thundering. She noticed then, one of the 4 remaining crayon doors on Lucy's bedroom wall, the one drawn to look like a closet with slats, was slowly fading. The thick lines of crayon seemed to be bleeding downwards like wet ink, vanishing into the wall. She blinked in shock. In all her life, Maria had never seen anything like it. Lucy saw it too. The little girl tugged on Maria's sleeve, voice trembling. "I have to fix it. I have to draw it again before he finds a way out of there too." Before Maria could respond, a new sound drifted through the hall, as if someone were knocking from inside the walls. Maria's throat went dry. She took a cautious step into the hallway, Lucy right behind her, clutching a crayon she'd grabbed from her nightstand. At the far end of the corridor, John was coming up the stairs 2 at a time, pale-faced. "The house, it's changed. The doors." He panted but froze when he saw what Maria saw. The hallway didn't look right. There were more doors than there should be. 3 on the left side, 2 on the right, when in reality there were only 4 rooms upstairs. An extra door was now present, smack in the middle of a wall where no room existed on the other side. It was a simple wooden door, one they had never seen before, and it was slightly ajar. From the inch-wide gap, pure darkness spilled out like ink. John felt a surge of protective terror. He positioned himself in front of Maria and Lucy, raising the bat. Suddenly, bang! The door to Lucy's bedroom, behind them, slammed shut on its own. Lucy screamed in fright. Maria yanked the handle, trying to reopen it, but it was stuck fast, as if something or someone was holding it closed from inside. John barked at them to stay back and approached the mysterious new door in the hall. His hands trembled, but he tightened his grip on the bat. With a trembling hand, he pushed the strange door open wider with the bat's tip. It swung open silently. The void beyond yawned black and empty. John leaned forward, squinting, his mind reeling. This door should lead straight outside. This was an outer wall of the house, but instead it seemed to open into nothingness. No floor, no attic, just an impossible darkness. The air that wafted out was ice cold and smelled of damp earth. John's instincts screamed to shut it, to run, to get his family out of this nightmare of a house. He took one step back, and that's when he came out. A pale shape crawled out of the darkness on all fours. In the stark hallway light, John saw it clearly and felt his stomach turn. It was emaciated and contorted, like a person who had been broken and remade all wrong. Its limbs were far too long, each arm bent in multiple places as it pulled itself forward. The head was bald and cocked at a sickening angle. Worst of all were its eyes, lidless black orbs that fixed hungrily on John. The creature's mouth yawned open in a rictus grin, revealing a row of needle-like teeth. It moved with unsettling speed, scuttling out of the doorway and into the hall, joints cracking. John yelled in surprise and swung the bat with all his might. Crack! He struck its shoulder, and the bat splintered on impact as if he'd hit solid rock. The creature barely flinched. A low hiss escaped its throat, and it lunged at John with impossible strength. Maria and Lucy could only watch in horror. The hallway lights flickered wildly as man and monstrosity collided. John was a tall, strong man, but the gaunt creature lifted him off his feet and slammed him against the wall like a rag doll. John cried out in pain as the wind was knocked from his lungs. "Daddy John!" Lucy screamed, momentarily reverting to the only word she knew to call him in her panic. Maria grabbed Lucy and pulled her back, inching towards the staircase. They had to get out now. But as she glanced down the stairs, her heart sank. The staircase now ended in a wall. The way down was gone, replaced by an unbroken stretch of plaster, as if the house was trapping them on the second floor. John grappled with the creature, struggling to free himself from its bony grasp. Up close, he noticed something horrifying. Carved into the pallid flesh of the creature's chest was a familiar pattern. Ornate whorls and loops, just like the ones Lucy had drawn on the first door. This thing had come from behind that drawing. With a burst of adrenaline, John drove his elbow into the creature's face. It released him with a shriek. John stumbled free, grabbing a shard of the broken bat. Behind the creature, he saw the other impossible door still yawning open into a void. Maybe, he thought wildly, if he could just force it back through. "Maria, take Lucy and hide!" John shouted. Maria, voice shaking, ushered Lucy into the only refuge she could think of, the bathroom just a few feet down the hall. She slammed the bathroom door and locked it, pulling Lucy into the bathtub with her, trying to shield the girl's body with her own. In the chaos, the lights in the house surged blindingly bright, then exploded, glass bulbs bursting one by one. Now the only light came in sporadic flickers from sparking wires and the cold moonlight filtering through a hallway window. In that strobing half-light, John faced the creature again. It skittered toward him, its limbs unfolding taller now, body contorting until it stood on two legs. It towered over John, its head nearly scraping the ceiling. John clenched his jaw, hiding his terror. "Come on," he growled under his breath. "Come on, you freak!" With a guttural snarl, the creature lunged. John ducked under its swinging arm and rammed his shoulder into its chest with all his might, trying to drive it back. The creature was surprisingly light. It felt like shoving an empty coffin. They slammed into the open doorway, half of the creature's body teetering over the threshold into that abyss beyond. The creature shrieked. An ear-splitting sound of rage and fear, clawing at the doorframe with spidery fingers to keep from falling back in. Its free arm lashed out and clawed into John's side. John gasped as searing pain shot through him. He felt warm blood soaking his shirt. Still, with a roar, he gave one final push. For a heartbeat, everything hung in balance. The creature's eyes widened as it lost its grip and tumbled backward into the black void. But in the same instant, it snagged John's wrist in a vice-like hold and yanked him forward. John had only enough time to let out a single yell of alarm before he was pulled into the darkness along with it. The door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous clap, rattling the walls. Then the hallway was empty. John and the creature were gone. All that remained was a blank wall, where moments ago a mysterious door had stood. Now there was only smooth, featureless wall. It was as if the door, John, and the nightmare figure had never been there at all. In the bathroom, Maria and Lucy heard the crash and John's final cry. Then, silence. Trembling, Maria unlocked the door. The hallway was dim, lit only by the moon. "John?" she called out, voice wavering. No answer. Only Lucy's soft sobs filled the air. She clutched a blue crayon so tightly her knuckles were white. They stepped into the hall and Maria's foot brushed something. She looked down to see the broken half of the baseball bat. Blood smeared the carpet nearby in long, chaotic streaks leading to the wall, and then stopping abruptly at its base. Maria's head spun. Her husband had been there, fighting for their lives, and now... gone. She let out a fractured sob, but her instinct to protect Lucy was stronger than her grief and shock. "We have to get out of here, Lucy," she whispered, but the house wasn't done with them. As Maria tried to lead Lucy towards where the staircase should be, she found only a blank wall. The house's layout was still shifting, trapping them upstairs. Doors that once led to familiar rooms now opened into empty closets or brick walls. One door opened into a hallway that simply shouldn't exist. Maria slammed that one shut immediately, afraid of what she might see at its end. Every direction led to dead ends and confusion. It was an impossible labyrinth of looping halls and newly formed chambers. The house groaned, and somewhere beneath the walls came that scraping sound again, multiplying, as if more things were crawling just out of sight, ready to emerge. Lucy tugged Maria's hand and pointed to the last remaining crayon door drawing still untouched on her bedroom wall. Only 2 were left now. The others had vanished or been painted over. "We have to keep them closed," Lucy said urgently, tears in her eyes. Maria, choking back panic, nodded. She didn't understand fully, but she had witnessed enough to trust that whatever Lucy believed, it was real. With shaking hands, Maria hoisted Lucy up to reach the second drawn door on the wall. "Do it, sweetie," she urged. Lucy, hiccuping cries, began to retrace the fading lines of the crayon door, strengthening them, her blue crayon filling in what had started to dissolve. Incredibly, as she did, the cacophony of whispers and scraping beyond the walls dulled, as if muffled by some barrier. Maria felt a surge of hope. This was working. Lucy finished one door, then moved to the next, scribbling with desperate focus to reinforce the seal of the final drawn door. The house fell eerily still when the last line was redrawn. For a moment, Maria dared to breathe. Maybe they had stopped whatever horror was unfolding. Maybe John's sacrifice wasn't in vain. She squeezed Lucy tightly. "That's my brave girl. You did it." Lucy opened her mouth to respond, perhaps to say it wasn't over, but before she could speak, the floor shook beneath them. A sound like a deep sigh rippled through the walls, and the entire house shuddered, as if something of tremendous weight was shifting within its foundations. Suddenly, a splintering crack rang out. Maria's eyes darted to the source. To her horror, the yellow paint where John had covered Lucy's first door drawing was fracturing. Thin lines snaked across the plaster surface, and the paint began to blister and peel, as though an invisible force was pushing from the other side. "Get back!" Maria yelled, shoving Lucy behind her. With an explosive burst, the painted-over section of wall blew open, chunks of drywall and paint flying. A gaping black cavity now yawned in the wall, an open doorway into that same impossibly dark void. The seal John had broken was open once more. From that darkness, a hand emerged, if it could even be called a hand. It was deathly pale and wrong, with too many joints in each finger. It stretched outward, feeling the edges of the opening, and then another hand appeared, pushing the gap wider. Maria could only stare, paralyzed with fear, as a second creature, similar to the first but even taller and more twisted, began to writhe out of the broken wall. Its eyeless face tilted toward them, and it let out a rattling breath that sounded like a chuckle. Maria stumbled back, shielding Lucy. The child was screaming now, a raw, terrified wail. The creature's lanky form slithered halfway into the room, its back bent unnaturally to fit through the opening. It was coming for them. With a surge of adrenaline and maternal fury, Maria grabbed the only weapon within reach, a long shard of shattered drywall, and held it out like a spear. "Stay away!" she shouted, voice cracking. The creature paused, cocking its hideous head. Then in a blur, it lunged at Maria. She braced for unimaginable pain, but it never came. At that exact moment from behind, Lucy threw her little arms around Maria's waist and squeezed her eyes shut. In Lucy's hand was the stub of her blue crayon, and with a final desperate cry, she flung it at the creature. The crayon struck the creature's face, and bizarrely, it recoiled, not from the force of the crayon, but as if the tiny object burned like acid. The creature veered away, not attacking, but instead slithering past them, towards the open doorway, as if drawn by an unseen command. Maria realized with dawning hope Lucy's presence, her drawings, something about her was repelling it or luring it back through the door. Perhaps Lucy herself was the key to these seals. The creature's twisted form slipped back into the darkness, and for a heartbeat, it vanished. Maria's pulse pounded in her ears. Was it gone? She took a tentative step forward, not letting go of Lucy's hand. Without warning, the door in the wall slammed shut on its own, sealing the crack in the plaster as if it had never been there. The force of it knocked Maria and Lucy off their feet. They tumbled to the floor amid the debris, and the silence that followed was deafening. In the end, only one drawn door remained visible on Lucy's wall. The last crayon door, reforged by Lucy's hand, standing bold and intact. It seemed the nightmare had stopped, at least for now. The house gradually returned to an uncanny stillness. The extra doors in the hallway were gone. The normal layout seemed restored. Even the staircase reappeared, offering a path down and out. But John was gone, and so much damage had been done. Maria clutched Lucy to her chest. Both were sobbing now, the gravity of John's loss hitting them. They stayed huddled on the floor until the first light of dawn crept through the broken windows. Only then did Maria find the strength to move. She carried Lucy down the stairs, through a house that now felt like a stranger's, and out the front door. Outside, the world was blissfully normal. The early morning air was cold and still. Birds were starting to chirp. Maria collapsed on the lawn, hugging Lucy tightly as sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors must have heard the commotion and called for help. Lucy trembled in her arms, repeating over and over through tears, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Maria shushed her gently, though her own tears fell freely. She had no idea how to explain any of this, but one thing she now understood. Lucy's drawings had never been just art. They were seals, protections against something truly evil. And in their ignorance, she and John had broken one. The weight of that realization would haunt Maria for the rest of her life. In the weeks that followed, investigators struggled to make sense of the Owens house. They found the interior wrecked, walls cracked, doors off hinges, but the most disturbing detail was John's disappearance. There was no sign of him anywhere. Blood on the hallway carpet was the only evidence of a struggle. The authorities questioned Maria extensively, but her story about monsters in the walls was met with understandable skepticism. No one believed the truth. Some suspected John's fate was far more mundane and sinister. Whispers of foul play circulated. Grief-stricken and under suspicion, Maria was in no state to care for a child. Lucy, who had already lost one family, now effectively lost another. So it was that Lucy found herself moving once again through the foster system. She spent a few days at a children's centre, silent and distant, until a new foster arrangement was made. On the day a social worker drove her to yet another town, Lucy stared out the car window with hollow eyes. She clutched her old sketchbook on her lap. Inside, amid childish crayon drawings of flowers and clouds, were 5 pages that had been ripped out. Lucy had torn out her drawings of the 5 doors she'd sealed in the Owens house. 4 of those pages were now blank, nothing but faint smudges remaining. The 5th page, however, still clearly showed the charcoal outline of a door. The one door she had managed to reseal. Lucy traced a finger over it and whispered something under her breath, a promise to herself. That evening at Lucy's new foster home, her latest foster parents, a kindly middle-aged couple who knew nothing of the Owens tragedy, showed her to her bedroom. It was smaller than the Owens house, but cozy, with pale blue walls and a neat twin bed. They encouraged her to decorate it however she liked. Lucy offered them a polite nod. She was as quiet and gentle as ever, which they took as a good sign given all she had been through. After they wished her good night, Lucy closed the door and stood alone in the dark. For a long moment, she simply listened, half expecting to hear whispers or scratches. Silence. Only her own heartbeat and breaths. Slowly, Lucy knelt by the wall near the foot of her bed. From the pocket of her dress, she pulled out a single crayon, a black one, saved from her old home. With steady, deliberate strokes, Lucy began to draw on the blue paint. A familiar shape took form, the outline of a door, tall and rectangular. She added details carefully, a curved handle, panels, even the grain of wood. Her eyes were distant, sad but determined. As the first door in her new room materialized under her crayon, Lucy let out a tiny sigh. In the silence of midnight, she whispered to the door like an old friend, her voice mournful yet resolute. "I'll keep you closed this time, I promise." Outside Lucy's new room, the house was quiet and still. Her foster parents slept soundly, unaware of the danger that had once again followed this innocent, cursed girl. They didn't hear when, from behind the freshly drawn door on Lucy's wall, a faint scratching sound began. It was soft, almost gentle, like a creature testing the strength of a barrier. Lucy heard it, though. She pressed her little palm flat against the cool wall, right on the center of the drawn door, and hummed a lullaby under her breath, a song her first mother used to sing. The scratching ceased, as if lulled by the sound. Satisfied, Lucy climbed into bed, leaving the new door drawing as a silent sentinel in the dark room. As she closed her eyes, a single tear rolled down her cheek. It was a tear for John and Maria, for her parents before them, and for whatever endless night lay ahead. Lucy didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing with dreadful certainty. The things behind the doors were still out there, waiting. And a 7-year-old girl was all that stood between those monsters and the world. In the corner of the bedroom, the darkness deepened, watching the sleeping girl. For now, the drawn door held firm. But somewhere in the quiet of that new house came a single hushed whisper, so soft it could have been imagination. Lucy. And Lucy, fast asleep, furrowed her brow as if she heard it in her dreams. The nightmare was far from over. It was only just beginning. Not all monsters hide under the bed. Some wait patiently behind walls, drawn in silence by the hands of a child. And sometimes the only thing holding them back is a crayon. Because once a door is opened, it never truly closes. She didn't draw doors to escape the world. She drew them to keep it safe.
Every story has an end, but here the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.